All right, we are now live with we got Parker, we got Matt, and we got Jordan here with us for the January 2015 Jekyll Townhall. Um, let's get started. I guess first thing to talk about would be I think the meetup that's happening in February on the 5th at GitHub HQ. Parker, what do you got?
On the 5th of February, as you said, at 7 p.m. at GitHub headquarters at 88 Colin P. Kelly Street in San Francisco. We're going to have a meetup, just like a meet and greet. I was thinking about adding more structure to it, but I just don't think, I think, just getting to know each other is sort of a great first step. There's going to be like pizza and beer probably. There's definitely going to be pizza. I don't know about the beer yet. But yeah, so GitHub has been kind enough to open its doors. So come, if you want, come with code. We might hack a little bit, but just hang out and sort of get to know each other. So if you're in the Bay Area on the 5th of February, please come swing by. And that's 88 Colin P. Kelly Street. Is a blog post about it on jekylrb.com.
Do you know like a list of people who are confirmed to be going by chance?
I don't have a list of like prominent folks. MDO works for GitHub, so he might be there. If 7 p.m. is not an abnormal time for people to be working, especially if they have flexible hours, like they might at GitHub. I know that Garen Tarikian, who is of GitHub Help and GitHub support fame, is also going to be there. Maybe Brian Levine, he might show up. Who else? Joel Glovier, I think, is going to be in town for this. But right now, I think that's it.
Is the goal to get regular users of Jekyll out to GitHub to meet up with us so we can help them get stuff done, or is it mainly for just everyone just kind of hang out and just meet one another?
Yeah, it's really more the latter. It's really just to get to know each other. There's going to be a video link, so we're going to have a live stream on the big screen of other folks. You can tap in and we can have a discussion if you want. So yeah, it's really not meant to be anything in particular. It's meant to be a come swing by, get to know people. If you want to code. Otherwise, just sit and have a beer and chat.
So does that mean there's going to be like a hangout for those of us who can't make it out to San Francisco to like participate, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
What time is it again?
It's 7 p.m. Pacific. So
okay.
we'll post something on the issues, and I'll post a Twitter or a tweet. I'll post a Twitter as well.
Yeah, and the 5th is a Thursday, so for you, Matt, that's Central Time, 9 o'clock on.
I might be able to make that.
Well,
that would be cool.
All right. Well, that's more information about the event than I had before. So let's. If anyone has any other questions about what's going to happen with that, try to just post an issue on Jekyll's issues, and then I'm sure Parker will be more than happy to give you more info. What is new with Jekyll 3.0? Who wants to talk about it? Anybody?
I don't know anything about it, so not me.
I could say we'll probably have a new test suite. That's about it.
Yeah, that's cool.
I'm really excited about that, not going to lie.
Parker posted an issue a couple days ago about the release game plan, and he's got a pretty extensive list of checkboxes here, that most of which are not yet checked off. And then there's also the 3.0 milestone that's just hanging out there. What kind of progress has been made, at least over the last month, to get it out there, to get it going?
So a lot of the last month for me was sort of wrapping my head around what makes sense to ship with 3.0 and what doesn't. We made the decision to include incremental regeneration, which was merged in the last month or so. Also Liquid 3, that upgrade, we have optional Liquid C support as listed. You can see that's already completed. I've completed some of I have to fix the tests, again going back to the tests, for 3323, which we want to make Jekyll as lightweight as possible. We want to make it like the Watcher. We want to make it syntax highlighting, markdown, liquid, and that's it. Like we want to reduce the dependencies as much as possible, such that you are able to very easily, very quickly get started without too many headaches. We're trying to reduce Windows users have been, there's one Windows user in particular that's been incredibly helpful, and his username starts with an X, and I have no idea how to pronounce it, so I'm not going to try. But thank you for your help. We're trying to get Jekyll, we're trying to make it easier to install in general, and by way of doing that, reduce the dependencies on C extensions. So no more red carpet, no more, what else is a C extension? No more POSIX spawn via Pigment's RB. So we're just trying to make it a lot easier to install, and hopefully we'll make it easier to install on Windows as well. Switching over to Rouge, trying to make it lighter, trying to make it simpler. And the one big unknown for me is how we want to integrate hooks, what kind of hooks we want for plugins, because we have to support that from 3.0 at least until 4.0. So maybe 4.0 has a slightly different take on hooks, but for 3.0 we want to be able to say, here are hooks. These you can rely on until 4.0 at least. You know,
We'll just ship 4.0 6 weeks after we ship 3.0. No big deal.
I'm down. I'm down.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's also, I've been working with Brandon Mathis, who is working on Octopress 3.0, which is amazing, by the way. You should check it out, to fix pagination. The pagination configuration is really where I've been stuck a little bit. And I think I found out a relatively good plan such that you can paginate. You can specify the template. You can specify the permalink for the pagination pages, etc. You can sort of run a query almost. You can say, I want all the posts which have this category, or I want all the article collection documents which have this front matter, etc. So basically making pagination way better than it is right now.
All right. Pretty cool. Is there anything in particular that you need help from members of the community with? Anything that someone can pick up and try to help you out with?
The
That's
test
awesome.
suite.
The test suite is definitely a good.
I mean,
There's always testing that could be done, right?
Well, I mean, over the last few weeks, I've gone over the test because what originally started out as my goals ended up being, okay, let me go through and check the test, make sure everything's copacetic so I understand where we stand at with the test. Then once I got into the tests, I discovered several really scary problems that just had to be addressed. You know, there were some tests in there that were literally just worthless. I mean, they were doing nothing. I mean, there was one test where it was supposedly testing symlinks, but it was actually not testing symlinks at all. And Parker was like, well, that's why that test never failed. And it just turned out to be that every time we would go through a test, there would be one problem found in a set of tests, and it ended up being, you know, why not just rewrite it all? And that's going to be a big undertaking if we want to get it done by 3.0, which definitely can use some help, especially since we're moving everything to RSpec.
Gotcha. Is there a like a central issue where folks who are interested in helping out with that can go and chime in?
Not until I've finished going through and deciding what needs to stay and what needs to be scrapped. I mean, I haven't had time in the last few days, so Parker hasn't been hearing from me from issues I found. But definitely once I've gone through all the tests and figured out where the actual bottlenecks are, then we can finally make a ticket and Parker can go through and decide what's actually important and needs to actually change. Because for the most part, a lot of the tests that haven't had problems have just been rolled over into RSpec. But the major problems have been, you know, mainly the security suite needs to be done so that GitHub has an idea of what, you know, they can just run their own spec and say, okay, these are the set of tests we need to do. And that would be nice if someone could go through and do that. If GitHub could even make us a list of things that they check when they do it, we can go through and make a whole suite that does that on their behalf. You know, those are the kind of things we probably need the most help with. But for the most part, a lot of tests are going to go because those things are being split off into their own projects, and a lot of tests are just being rolled over, and things that don't make sense are just being thrown out.
Okay, so if you're interested in helping out with that, watch out for Jordan's issue coming up soon. That's going to be like a call to action, I imagine. It'll sound just like that too.
At the same time, with tests as well, Right now, the tests don't work on Windows. I think especially these symlink tests, etc. Concepts that are available on Unix but aren't available on Windows that we're testing, etc. We need a better game plan for Windows testing as well. So if you are a Windows user, I don't have a Windows computer and I have no access at work either. We have no Windows machines. So if you are a Windows user and have access to a Windows machine, by way of being a Windows user, and you could try to fix some of the tests, that'd be awesome. It'd be great to, as much as possible, isolate those into their own file, or somehow make them Windows-only tests, or maybe to not run on Windows. I don't know. We'll post a pull request and we'll talk about it. But that would be huge.
Well, I mean, even if you could point out the problems, I have access to several Windows machines.
Is one of the ideas with Jekyll going forward, and in relation to Windows, going to be running it natively on a Windows machine, or is it a better idea to use something like Vagrant VirtualBox and run it in a virtual system?
I think for the users who don't have access to Vagrant and VirtualBox, or they don't have access to the knowledge required. So maybe I work at I worked at Cornell for a summer, and we built a Jekyll site, and it was difficult to build one. I had to use my own Mac, my own machine. I couldn't use the Windows machine because Jekyll just didn't really run well. So as much as possible, trying to make it just run on Windows for those that aren't interested in setting up Vagrant or some virtual machine, or who can't. Maybe there are policy problems. You're the government or some big business or something that doesn't allow people to install their own custom items.
I think that's definitely a must-have. With Windows 10 coming, and there being a real virtual terminal now, a terminal that you can actually make full screen besides the ISE version of the terminal, I think people are going to be developing a lot more. A lot of people are going to be shifting back and forth between all the different operating systems, and it's become more prudent now that they've got a package manager coming in Windows 10. If it is what I think it is, they've got a real virtual terminal coming in. Windows might turn out to be a platform that turns out to be important for us.
Yep. Going back to the symlink support, is that just because, Windows has symlinks, so is it just a matter that Ruby doesn't support those very well, or are we doing something different in our code base around symlinks that just keeps that from being well supported? I don't remember the specifics.
I think it's the problem is more the latter. We might be doing something really strange around symlinks that Windows doesn't like. But if you clone down the repo onto your Windows computer and just run like script bootstrap and then script CI build, the tests, the unit tests just don't run.
They just fall over.
Yeah. There are like 15 errors or something. So.
Well, I think the problem is actually Ruby. From what I remember, Ruby doesn't actually, the symlink function that we would be using doesn't actually work on Windows. A lot of people work around that by just creating their own symlink function that uses open.
It's an idea.
I would just hate to lose that functionality.
Oh, totally.
Because Windows, and I only say that because I know Windows supports symlinks, because when I was doing things on Windows, I was like, this needs a symlink. Can we make a symlink? Oh, we can make a symlink. I'm going to write things to make a symlink in my Windows code now.
Well, if push comes to shove, I can push up a function that does cross-platform symlinking, but I'm too lazy to go through and track down all the places that we use the symlink function. So if someone else wants to switch it over to the new function, then fair enough. I'll go ahead and push one out, within the next couple of hours.
Yeah, it'd be great to do that. I think the only place that we use this symlink function is in the tests, because basically what that test is doing, as far as I remember, is ensuring that we follow symlinks, which Ruby does automatically for you, I think, even on Windows, and two, that we follow symlinks appropriately, so we don't follow them in safe mode, for example, that we don't follow them outside of the repo, that in source dir, the Jekyll sanitized path functionality works properly. So I think it's only in the test that we really need that function, because we don't symlink anything. Jekyll doesn't symlink things.
Right.
Well, if that's the case, then I'll just go ahead and build that into the new tests that are coming out.
Perfect.
Alrighty. You guys want to keep talking about that, or should we move on to whatever's next?
I'm good.
Okay.
Something.
So recently there's been some discussion around different modes of communication, different channels, medium, and stuff like that. Is there like did we come to a decision on what we're going to do? Because I didn't catch it if we did.
I've kind of forced Parker into doing discourse. It was mostly because somebody had brought up a service called Run Above, which turned out to actually be pretty cheap because they have a testing service right now, like a little test bed where they're testing out new ideas, and they give you ultra cheap servers on there. And it was going to turn out to be like $10 for 3 months worth of service. So I was like, why not just go ahead and throw Discourse up there? I've got a lot of experience putting it up and managing it, so I'll put it up and we'll see how it goes. And a couple months after now, once I get it up and it's up, we can come through and actually decide if we want to keep it. If there's users visiting it, then we can go out and search for a sponsor. But if nobody's visiting it, then at that point we have to tell the community it's just not worth it. We can't ask a sponsor to pay for something that's not going to be used.
What are some of the things that this service offers? Because I don't know anything about it at all.
I've never actually played with Discourse as an actual website. Only managed it and put it up and made sure it was running. But from what I've experienced of it, it's pretty much a modern forum. It's kind of like Stack Overflow on steroids with a mailing list kind of built into the back end, as someone else pointed out. I've never enabled the mailing list because there's never been a need for it. I've experienced it a little bit on Adam's Discourse, and one of the nice things about it is it's kind of like GitHub tickets in that if someone posts, you'll get an update. It tells you where you're at as far as the thread is concerned, but it's pretty much just a big old forum where people can ask questions and get answers from the entire community. It's just a modern forum.
Yeah.
I imagine it supports stuff like threading and those types of things.
Yeah.
When I played with it, I got confused at their concept because they didn't actually have what we would traditionally call like a forum category or like a little area. They have I didn't quite grasp the concept. I mean, my old boss grasped the concept quite quickly, but I thought, it was like kind of like a category-based system where nothing's actually tied to something, but it's tied to something in some way. It kind of takes the approach of Stack Overflow from what I noticed. But, I mean, I could be very wrong. Like I said, I've never actually played with the website side of it.
So I've only used Discourse through Adam's Discourse as well, site as well. But the thing that gets me about Discourse is that the Ruby Rogues parlay list was a mailing list, and they switched it from a mailing list to Discourse. And that, to me, is a ringing endorsement of Discourse as far as something that we should at least try. Parker, they're going to kick you out. Something that we should at least try to see as far as how people use it, how people engage with it, how we as the core team can sort of get on it and engage with our user base with it, and is it easy for us to use and engage with? Because ultimately, if our users are using it, that's awesome. But if it's something that's just totally cumbersome for everybody to use, us included, that's something that we would have to either tweak or do something with. Because the idea, I think the goal for this, and somebody will correct me if I'm wrong, is that everybody's involved with it, not just a user community supporting everybody else. I mean, that's what Stack Overflow is for. But it's really to sort of get more interaction between the core team and the user base, really sort of figure out and get sort of real-time help, or at least help in such a way that's like, I got this answer from this one user, but I'm not really sure if it's going to work because, how well they know Jekyll, just that whole thing. Just provide some legitimacy to it. I think if we have actual developers answering it, but it's not. It seems better than all the other forum software that I've tried to use, which has sort of made me throw up in my mouth a little bit.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Well, I mean, it's like that guy implied, and I implied through that is I don't want to spend my time on a website. That's the last thing I want to do is start browsing, our Discourse site constantly to answer silly questions. But they did bring up the mailing list, which is kind of why we had originally selected a mailing list, was because it was easier for all of us to get involved. It's a lot quicker for me to answer an email than it will ever be for me to go to a website. And if Discourse truly supports this mailing style format, I think it would be quite easy for us as developers to be involved and help these people. But the big worry for me is not, are we going to be involved? It's, are we going to start getting what should be a GitHub ticket on Discourse?
At that point, there's got to be some management where we just say, hey, this, I understand that this is a problem for you, but this is not something we can solve on discourse. Please file an issue. It's going to be up to them to file an issue. I mean, we're going to have this problem anywhere, no matter what, whether we set up a traditional mailing list, whether we set up an IRC channel, or whether we set up a forum. I mean, just people are going to just email and be like, hey, I have this problem. And we're just going to tell them, hey, yes, that is a problem. It's a bug. We're going to have to fix it. Can you file the ticket? So, I mean,
ultimately, all of the legitimate issues that are like with the code base have to be filed as actual issues in the GitHub repo in order to be tracked properly and stuff like that.
Exactly. In 12 years of being involved in open source, I mean, there's just never been a case where I have not, like, somebody's been like, hey, I found this thing that doesn't work right, and I go look at the code, and it's like, well, yeah, that's a bug. Would you mind filing a ticket? Because I'm not going to remember, because I've just replied to your email, and I'm on to the next email. So It's like, I mean, that's just the reality of the situation, right? Like, if, you found it, that's awesome. I confirmed for you that it's a bug. I'm going to ask you nicely to file a ticket. And at that point, it's going to be sort of on you to file the ticket. And if you don't file one, then I'm sorry. I would love to help you, but ultimately I need the ticket. Otherwise, I've got too many other things going on to actually remember to file, like, fix your bug that you found in the email that I replied to.
Yeah, and that's the problem with this kind of thing, right? I mean, it kind of like splinters the different modes of communication into a bunch of different places, which is like counterproductive a little bit. But I suppose there are some people who just don't want to make GitHub accounts or don't want to get into there. I don't know. I could go out on a limb here and say that anyone who's using Jekyll ought to have a GitHub account. Maybe that's just me. I mean, I could be totally wrong about that. So I don't necessarily see the benefit of this other than just causing more, I don't know what the right word is, but just causing more fragmentation in bases of users.
Yeah, they're definitely, so that's a con, right, of the system, is that we have talk happening over here, we have talk happening over here. There's an IRC channel. I realized there's a subreddit. I learned that the other day. I had no idea that there was a subreddit. So you have people in lots of different places, but for an open source project, it makes sense to go to where the people are, right? And because it's a self-service environment, right? I can't answer everything. You can't answer everything. So make it so public that anyone can answer anything. So if you have a few spare hours, you can just go through, or a spare hour or something, you can go through a couple emails and just answer. How amazing is that? The fact that you can that others can contribute. So I'm sure that there are some users who'd be interested in spending time answering support issues, which is what the Jekyll help team has been great about. Is providing a lending hand that eases the load for me and for the core team. So I think while the con is we have two different places that might have high activity, the pro then is that we have a high signal to noise ratio. So we're not getting Jekyll issues that are like, I can't install this for some reason. That's a discourse item. So like installation errors would go there. Problems with I can't build my site for X reason is not, unless it's identified as a bug and escalated, then we're keeping the issues quiet. So that the issues can really be a place to discuss and to talk about bugs, new features, etc. And so and we can use things like discourse to talk about this meeting, to leave notes, to discuss things. It's meant to be a discussion area, whereas meant to be arbitrary discussion versus GitHub issues, which are really meant to be, hey, there's an issue with your code. There's a bug. I've discovered something that has nothing to do with my site, has everything to do with your program. So that's sort of I'd love to be able to reverse that ratio. We have a lot of issues that are like, hey, I couldn't install it because I can't reach S3, or I can't, something weird happened that is out of our control that has nothing to do with us, and that might be 30 seconds or a minute that we're reading through this issue and reading through the stack trace or something. But if that can be elsewhere and can be community funded time almost, then it's a huge win for me. And I think with regard to elevating a discussion or discourse discussion to an issue, I added some documentation to Rust. I was going through Cargo and I couldn't figure out what the hell they were doing. So I submitted I figured it out eventually, submitted a pull request to them. They have a bot that just watches for all the pull requests and that automatically assigns the pull request to someone on the core team, etc. Talks about things. Google has one, a CLA bot, that says, you yes or no, have you signed the contributor license agreement for all Google's, etc. So we could have like a bot of some sort that would, you could say, at Jekyll bot escalate to an issue or escalate to GitHub or something, and then that would automatically take the body of the main issue, of the top issue, of the original post, and shove it over on GitHub, automatically mentioning the various users that are involved, or maybe posting a link on Discourse. I don't know. We have ways of automating that, I guess. So I wouldn't worry about that too much.
Okay, cool.
I mean, the big problem, and this is why I kind of pushed back away from Discourse and the mailing list, even from the beginning when I kind of rejected it, even though I changed my mind, was that I'm worried that we're going to end up answering what is Shopify's problem. I mean, I know it sounds mean for this to say that, but Liquid is not our problem. And if you're having a Liquid problem, that's more or less Shopify's department, not our department. And why are we having to do their job when they've got millions of dollars and we've got nothing? And that's why I kind of push back from it, and that's what I'm afraid of, is we're going to end up mostly answering questions that really should be, asked to Shopify, because Liquid is their product.
Well, I mean, whenever we bring Liquid into Jekyll, it becomes part of our product, right? So it means that we have just as big a responsibility. Now, if there is like a bug that's happening with Liquid, or if there's like a new feature that would make sense for us to suggest to them, then I imagine we could figure out a way to automate that also if we needed to. But I mean, the fact that Liquid is a part of Jekyll makes it part of our problem also, right?
Well, I could accept that logic if we had all of the Liquid docs on our own sites, but we don't. We don't even show the basics of Liquid on our own docs, which in and of itself presents a logical problem for me. If we're not showing them the basics of Liquid, then obviously we push Liquid off as one of our problems.
Well, I mean, I think we are showing a lot of the basics of Liquid, at least, like whenever you show how to like do includes and how to show variables and stuff on your layouts. That's part of the documentation. But I agree with you for like, the advanced filters and that kind of thing. We aren't documenting them terribly well on Jekyll's site. I wonder if we should start doing that, maybe, because there's a lot of stuff that's a part of Jekyll that is not necessarily part of Liquid, and vice versa. So it might make sense for us to document those differences better.
Absolutely. I think I've been talking with the Liquid team about them revamping their site, their like Liquid documentation, because it's really not that great, and then us just inking out to them as much as possible. But going back to Troy, one of your previous questions, which is how do we need help? Contributing documentation, making a change to the documentation website, which is in the core master or Jekyll repository under the site subpath, would be a huge help. Those are relatively easy to review for us, and they're very trivial to push out. So anytime you discover an error on Jekyll, you very quickly can go to the repository and edit the file. Everything's in site_docs is the documentation stuff. There are includes, etc. It's a Jekyll site, so you probably already know how to handle it. But yeah, documentation would be huge. If you ever discover something that needs to be changed, please submit a pull request.
Alrighty. Well, I was trying to keep this thing to a cool 30 minutes, and we've gone a little bit over that, so I want to call it quits. I think this was just as helpful and awesome as the last one, so I'd love to keep doing this if you guys are down. But we'll talk about that on a issue whenever we get done here. That's it for me. Do you guys want to say bye?
Bye, guys. Thanks for watching. And Jekyll 3 is coming out whenever these issues are done, whenever these check boxes are complete. If you have any other ideas about what you'd like to see in Jekyll 3.0, please don't hesitate to comment on this issue. Pagination is a huge piece of this as well that isn't here that I should add. So thanks for using Jekyll, and as always, let us know where your pain points are. Let us know where we can make improvements. So thanks.
Thanks, everyone. See you later, guys.